EPCOT Center celebrates human achievements and innovation born from imagination.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. All of us at EPCOT Center are glad to have you as our guests today.
It isn't just a resort, it isn't just a World's Fair, not just a cavalcade of wizardry, technology, and flair.
But the most exciting and by far the most important part of our Florida project, in fact, the heart of everything we'll be doing in Disney World, will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mongello, and this is show number 609, and I'm here once again not only to help you have the best possible vacation experience when you come to the Disney parks, but I also want to bring you some of that Disney magic wherever you are with the podcast, my live video broadcasts on Facebook every Wednesday night, videos, blog, books, audio tours, and more. Whether it's your first time visiting or you've been hundreds of times, if you're planning your next vacation or just love the history, details, secrets, and stories, there's something in the show for you because each week I'm going to take you from the parks to the screens and everything in between. And if you're a new listener, thank you, welcome. Please go back and check out some or all the past episodes for interviews, top 10s, reviews, and more. You can subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts or Spotify and find everything else at WDWRadio.com. So in my continuing series highlighting the music of Walt Disney World, this week we begin our journey through EPCOT Center as we make our way through Future World. We'll also look at not just the genesis and evolution of the music in the park, shows, and attractions, but the masterful composers and arrangers behind it. I'll then have the answer to our last Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, and I'll pose a new challenge for your chance to win a Disney Prize package. Then stay tuned to the end of the show for information, updates, and why you should tune in this week especially to our Wednesday night WDW Radio live show. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. EPCOT is a melting pot of so many cultures, ideas, ideals, technologies, and literal and figurative flavors. It's also a place where you can hear music that is as diverse as the pavilions and cultures, from Herman's Hermits to the Sherman Brothers, Yanni, yodeling, Debussy, all within just a few minutes and a few steps of one another. But it's also a place where names like Bob Moline and Richard and Robert Sherman, Bruce Broughton, Exitensio, Buddy Baker, George Wilkins, and so many other legendary composers and musicians have left their indelible marks. And like every Disney park, EPCOT is meant to be savored with all five senses and in 360 degrees. And what you hear is as important as what you see, smell, touch, and yes, dare I say, even taste. In fact, one may argue that the music of EPCOT Center includes some of the greatest, most memorable, and impactful works from the masters who created them. And so this week, in our continuing series highlighting the music in the magic, we will look at the music of EPCOT Center, starting with Future World. And joining me on this musical journey through the park and the years are some makers of magic in their own ways. Lisa Donato-Glassner from thecastlerun.com and Core Memory Candles.
Hey Lou, thanks for having me. I'm so excited for this topic.
We'll see if you feel that way when we're done. Jason Knapp is here from here with the magic and after hours on the Facebook.
Hello. You had me at Yanni. You had me at Yanni.
This is going to be an interesting conversation. And rounding out the quartet is going to be Zach Brown. And I realize that I need to say not Zach Brown, but in my estimation, he is the Zach Brown from the Zach Brown Show podcast.
Hey everybody, so excited to be here and talking about my favorite Walt Disney World park.
And I have to admit, I don't even know who the other Zach Brown is. I'm not lying.
That's okay.
Because basically and this is why I love this topic, because really all of the music that is on my mobile device is from the parks, a lot of it from Epcot Center and the 80s, and Walt Disney World in the 80s, including and probably especially Epcot Center. And one of the things that I love about the music from this park, really, as opposed to any of the other locations in Walt Disney World, really, is that there are so many different styles of music. Here in the past, from Impressionism, classical, to New Age, electroacoustic, to jazz, folk songs, to world cultural songs, and there's scores and songs from modern legends, as well as, especially now, some familiar movie and show tunes. And I think that the ubiquitous nature of the music in the parks really helps to define the spirit and the sensation which embodies the essence of Epcot, right? It's about enthusiasm and opportunity, hope, and amazing stories. And I wanted to start, where we enter. I wanted to start in Future World, because I realized there's no way we'll be able to do all of the music in one show without it being a 6-hour adventure. And which is also why you realize it's such a daunting task to create an audio tour for this park and each of the pavilions, because there is so much great music here, which is why we're going to divide this into hopefully just 2 parts. We're going to talk about Future World, and then in the future, we'll come back and talk about World Showcase, the parades, and nighttime spectaculars. And my thought, like what we did in Magic Kingdom, was to go through the entire park almost as we are walking it together through the past and into and through the different pavilions. And we'll talk about the theme songs, the background music from the past and present. And, I want to start off by talking a little bit about how we got here, because there's a little bit of a journey to and through Epcot history. But, when we, when I did the music of Magic Kingdom, and I was thinking about continuing on. Actually, Zach, you came to me and you said, Lou, I hate to even ask this, but man, when you get to Epcot Center, like, I totally want to be in. And when I talked to Lisa and Jason, there was this additional type of enthusiasm. What is it for you, for each of you, and I have to do ladies first. So Lisa, Zach, and then Jason, what is it for you about the music overall of Epcot Center that you think makes this park and the music within it so special?
So for me, I think it's the extent to which it's ever present, but in an almost unnoticeable way. And you guys might know, like, I do sense as a part of what I do, and the power of olfactory things. And for me, the music of Epcot hits me in the same way. It's the kind of thing that you almost don't know it's there, but it evokes emotion to such an extent, in Epcot in particular. And I don't think I can say that really about any other park. I think, Jason, we did an after hours show on music during the park closure. And when I was prepping for that show, it was very emotional for me. It was almost difficult to listen to some of the music because I missed it so much. And I think when Epcot finally did reopen, it was the only park that I cried at when I walked in the front gate. And I cried because I heard the music. And so, and it's funny, most of the songs that I'm going to talk about most meaningfully during the show, I probably couldn't really hum well for you or articulate very well. But when I hear them, they affect me in such a powerful way. And that's why I wanted so much to be a part of this show.
I would echo what Lisa says in that it is a very ever-present thing that you can't necessarily put your finger on. the music of Epcot is like the essence of the park. It's a movie score. It's like a soundtrack as you're walking through, and it really just sets this bright, uplifting tone and just a kind of very inspiring feeling as you walk around the different lands.
For me, it's the music of my life. Like, I have loved this music for so long that as soon as I could purchase it, I purchased it. Whenever there was an album, I would buy it. That was like the one thing I would have to purchase when I was in the parks. If there's a new Epcot album, I would buy it. And then I would start to track down, once we had Songza and Shazam and things like that, those apps that allow you to figure out what that song is playing. Anytime there was some music playing in the park, I would, find it and buy it on iTunes if I could. And so now, after decades of listening to these songs, I forget that they're Epcot songs. And so I have them on these playlists, and then I hear them in the park, and it's like it truly is this reflection of my life. Sort of like, what do they say, art imitating life, or that sort of thing. It's like it's in my DNA, and I could not possibly imagine an Epcot without its music. And I think the challenge for me in terms of preparing for this was not just the volume of music there is to kind of revisit and sort of relearn about, but also separating the old music from the new music, because those lines are so blurred in my head. And so I apologize in advance if I start to drift in and out of like what music is still around.
Consciousness.
Well, because it's just all Epcot music to me. It's like it will always exist forever.
Yeah,
whether
and
it's there or not.
And I think the current versus past music is going to come up more than once in terms of changes that have come to this park. And Disney fans are sometimes very protective, very sensitive of what is classic and meaningful to them, and sometimes they don't like change. But we will certainly touch on the various types of music. But I think we need to sort of set the stage a little bit in terms of how we got here, because as I was thinking about this show, I was thinking about the genesis of Epcot itself and really the music. Because if you think about it, the creation of Epcot Center was this incredibly overwhelming task. Again, Walt Disney passes, there really is no clear path to whatever they were trying to figure Walt had in his mind. And the concept of this Epcot experimental prototype community of tomorrow really sat for almost 8 years before they started to figure out what to do. And really, it was Card Walker, who was CEO at the time, went to Marty Sklar and says, what are we going to do? What are we going to do about this, Epcot project that obviously has to start taking flight at some point? And they go through over this 8 years trying to figure out what it should be, in their minds versus what they thought, what Walt might have wanted. And during that time, there's the technical aspects, there is the financial aspect, there is the cultural aspect in terms of outreach to international and domestic corporations who had to come on board, much like Disneyland, in order to make Epcot Center happen. And even as they started to break ground, like physically break ground on this project, at some point, they started thinking about all of the important elements, and there's almost this realization, like, you know what? There is something that we haven't really thought or talked about and haven't really seen anything new in more than a decade, and it was the music. Because if you think about it, Marty Sklar, during Epcot's 30th, actually talked about this. He said that they realized that there hadn't been a new song written for the parks since 1969, when Exitensio wrote Grim Grinning Ghosts for Haunted Mansion and Yo-Ho for Pirates of the Caribbean. And they're like, wait a minute, this is like 12, 13 years with no new music. We need to fix that. So, who do you think Marty calls first? Hi, Richard Sherman? Yeah. we need some music stat for Epcot. So, and the name Sherman Brothers is going to come up over and over again, but One Little Spark and Magic Journeys and Making Memories for Journey into Imagination were some of the first that they created, but there were so many other pavilions that were in development that they realized that, as much as the Sherman Brothers could write, they could not write every single theme for every single Epcot pavilion. And it was really interesting. Again, some of the names we're going to talk about, how we sort of keep repeating them. One of the names that, and I love the story, is Bob Moline. He was a young songwriter that at one time performed for a group of Disneyland executives, and they were so impressed that they asked him to write a jingle for Disneyland called It Could Only Happen at Disneyland. And although he was not as well known or had as many accolades, obviously, as the Sherman Brothers did, they wanted to tap into him very early on for Epcot. So he might have written, one or two things like Listen to the Land, Canada, Your Lifetime Journey, Energy, You Make the World Go Round, Golden Dreams, like the list goes on. And again, Marty during the 30th talked about how taking a chance, taking a gamble on this talent, finding him literally in a bar in Newport Beach, and the continuing contributions that he had to not just Epcot Center, but even other parks here in Walt Disney World is incredible. And I love hearing the stories about the people and how these things came to be. But I want to sort of start even before we walk into the park. I think sometimes, much like Magic Kingdom, before you even get to the first attraction, before you step foot onto Main Street or here in Epcot into Future World, because that's where we're going to enter from, the entrance music loop that you hear just as you're getting to the ticket booths and you're walking your way through, I still call them turnstiles, even though there's no turnstiles anymore, really helps not only to set the stage, but like Magic Kingdom, you hear a lot of the songs that are almost like coming attractions for like a movie movie coming attractions for what you're going to hear when you get into the park. And this too, Jason, to your point, changed from the 80s to the turn of the century, literally, to what we have now. But do you guys, when you step into the park, are you aware of that background music and some of the familiar songs from the attractions?
Yeah, I mean, it envelops me. And that's what I talked about before, when the park reopened and I literally cried for the first time since the reopening when I was walking into the Epcot gates for the first time. The instrumental Golden Dream just happened to be playing in that moment, and I just lost it. And I feel like that this is where the line almost starts to blur between past and present, because one of the things that the Imagineers do so well in Epcot, more than any other park, I think, is realize what their fans want and what their fans cling to. Just like no matter what happens with Imagination, Figment will always be a staple in Epcot. I think like so many of the extinct attractions have a role in that entrance loop. Honey, I Shrunk the Audience and Energy Adventure and things like that. You hear, in addition to the existing attractions and, things like David Arkenstone stuff. And it just sort of sweeps you in as you're walking through the gate.
I think so many of those scores, it's really cool because it's almost like it carries right on the wind as you walk up. You might not know the exact moment when it starts, but it just kind of fades in and you're home. And for me, like, I love when the music comes in at Magic Kingdom and it's great, but there are all these themes for the different adventures that we know and love. And like you're saying, it's the coming attractions, but it's almost like it's those familiar songs on the radio, except it's all those George Wilkins scores that just so resonate. And it's cool because they might be just a couple moments of one before it goes to the next, how it just kind of flows into one overall thought that is Epcot. It's a really amazing thing, and I applaud everybody who's putting together these tracks. They've done a phenomenal job.
I think that this may sound contradictory, but the music is such an important part of the experience at Epcot but I also feel like out of all the parks, it is the most subtle in terms of how it envelops you in the music and the sounds, because it as Lisa was talking, Zach was talking, I was thinking to myself, like, is there a particular song that jumps out at me that I have heard? You know, it's not like a Magic Kingdom or Hollywood Studios or even Animal Kingdom when you go in and you hear like this very familiar, like, oh, there's that song, I know I'm in this park. For me with Epcot, it's so subtle but omnipresent, and I don't know, it's just it's so funny that Lisa mentioned David Arkenstone, because I don't remember whether I heard his stuff before or after it was introduced at Epcot, because I'm kind of a weird young adult when I had all these Narada CDs and stuff that he was like all over those tracks. And then when I heard him in Epcot, it felt like I was home. And I hear it now. I still hear his stuff now, and I couldn't tell you like where the music starts, honestly. And so it's a little embarrassing when you say, you know, when you're walking up to the turnstiles and you hear the music, I'm like, I don't know. Because of all the parks, I can't tell you that I could definitively say like, oh, this is where the music begins.
Right, and I think that's a testament to George Wilkins, who was the composer of the original and then the 2001 updated version. And George Wilkins had only joined the company, I think, like 3 years earlier. He was brought on really as a protege to Buddy Baker.
Can I ask you a question?
You just did.
Okay, so one of the entrance songs that I know that I have that can actually play in my head is I think called Legacy. I swear I couldn't tell you whether it's a current song or whether it's an old extinct Epcot entrance song. And I think that's one of the conundrums that I have, is that the entrance music, and for me, I couldn't tell you whether that's something that you hear before you enter the park or after you're into the park. It's just, to me, that when I hear that sound, that music, it's the sound of Epcot. It's the sound of walking into Epcot.
And it's the entrance loop, like to your point, is so interesting because it doesn't feel like there are starting and stopping points and really any breaks. You know, it's fun to be free, transitions seamlessly into Magic Journeys, One Little Spark, Listen to the Land, and you're right. You sort of don't remember what songs were in the original and which are in the current loop because they've been on our devices for so many years, and we just sort of listen to them the same way. I'm very much an overly sentimental nostalgic, so there's a lot of me that has a personal affinity to some of the early original songs. But I think you're right. If they were sort of side by side, I would have to listen really carefully and be like, well, wait, Ellen's Energy Adventure was in the current one, but Universe of Energy was in the original, and that's how we sort of distinguish, because it's a long loop. It's like a 52-minute loop for the Epcot entrance medley. So,
and that's just a long time to stand there in the plaza, frankly.
It is, but when you listen to it on Spotify or, and you have it on your device, and Jason, by the way, it's perfectly okay. The statute of limitations is run. You can admit that you use Napster and Winamp, so it's fine.
No, I know. I never did. I swear to you, I never did. Probably because I didn't know how. But as soon as I could buy this stuff, and then I got really irritated, of course, after you could just subscribe to like Spotify and things like that, and you didn't have to buy stuff anymore because I have it all.
Well, but it was frustrating too for years not being able to find the music. To even, there was a time where there was the 4 Parks One World CD. There was it was like the Magic of Walt. There was a couple of different CDs. There was actually it was called the Wonderland CD system, where you actually used to be able to go and pick out tracks and make a custom CD of songs from the parks.
They had that. I think that would. I think I may remember that.
Yeah, I know that there was one in Magic Kingdom. I believe there was one in Epcot. I don't remember exactly where it was, but fortunately now we have the luxury and the gift of Spotify and so many ways that we can bring these things home, because the music does mean so much to us, especially for those people who can't get to the parks that often. But let's make our way in, and our first stop is obviously in Spaceship Earth, which has gone through a number of different, not just themes, but a number of different narrators over time. And there's this original theme to the opening day Spaceship Earth by Edo Guidotti, that you don't know his name, but you know the song if you hear it. But I think when a lot of people think about Spaceship Earth, the first two words that come to mind is Tomorrow's Child, from the 86 to 94 Walter Cronkite version.
I remember Walter Cronkite. I couldn't tell you that I remember that version paired up with his name, but I know that version in my head. I mean, of course I know that version of the song. I don't think I can remember when it switched over from the Guidotti version to the Broughton version but they're both amazing. And so whenever I hear them play now, I think, oh, for sure, this is the Spaceship Earth soundtrack, for sure. And then, so you're hearing the Guidotti version, you think, because the finale of the Guidotti version is fantastic. I mean, like tears, kind of fantastic. But then when you hear the Broughton version, it's also amazing, incredible. The whole Starfield piece, you can't separate that music from the Starfield. So for me, the music is more. I know people get hung up on like who's the best narrator and so on and so forth. For me, and also some people get hung up on like the smell of room burning and whatever. But like for me, the soundtrack of Spaceship Earth, old or new version, or I should say previous or current version, is it is the attraction.
And the only thing I will say is I think that in the current version, we're missing a moment. And there was a moment when your vehicle turned and you got into the top of the globe, and there's that reveal of Earth, and there's this incredible like soaring, you sort of feel it in your heart. And the Judi Dench version doesn't have that. It sort of lacks that impactful moment a little bit, which was one of the things, other than, do you remember how you learned the ABC nonsense? But other than that was the thing that I missed when the version switched over.
See, I still feel like that. I still feel like I get that. I mean, I can't compare it now, right? But I still feel like you still get the vehicle turning around and the big reveal. I mean, there was this
soaring.
It's not as big. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
No, it doesn't feel as grand.
Yeah, you feel it.
It's interesting because the songs are so different. I feel like that's the truth for a lot of EPCOT. Some of the sort of throwback songs that we all love are more sing-songy and lyrical and, fun to sing. And the new music, like, is probably admittedly much closer to my heart, but like I would need to hear it to sing it, because it's that subtle sort of background music. And, I definitely, while I have so much respect for Dame Judi Dench, she's certainly not my favorite Spaceship Earth narrator, but I will say that the Bruce Broughton music grabs me at least as much as, to say the least, as Tomorrow's Child. And Tomorrow's Child was the song of my childhood, and I love it. And it's sort of like you said, the two words that you associate with walking up to Spaceship Earth. But yeah, no, the Bruce Broughton music is, I admittedly like it at least as much as Tomorrow's Child, which feels sacrilegious to say.
It is sacrilegious to say.
But as far as a gut reaction,
peaceful.
Well, as far as a gut reaction, like I think I react emotionally at least as strongly to the current version.
They're different because
not
remember,
narration-wise.
One is a score and one is a song, so they are going to impact us differently, and that's why I think they sort of can exist in the world of a Spaceship Earth fan. Zach?
I think that's really the overarching thing, what we're going to see with a lot of these attractions, where the original were sing-song, almost like late 70s, early 80s jingles, where the new stuff that I think really saturates into us are these scores. And they're deep and they're moving and they're emotional, and some of them are waltzes and ballads, whatever. But they're just moving. They're really beautiful tracks. So, yeah, Tomorrow's Child is beautiful, but the Bruce Broughton track is really what does it for me.
See, for me, I'm a kid of the 80s, so Tomorrow's Child and the Walter Cronkite narration was more meaningful because I think the lyrics were so important, especially initially, to get across the message of what EPCOT Center was. So when you're talking about reaching for hope and desire and building a world to inspire, that encapsulates exactly what not just Spaceship Earth was, but what EPCOT Center was supposed to be. And look, even, we can have a separate conversation about the Descent today versus what the Descent was so many years ago. But that song that was sung by Sally Stevens, she's a very accomplished singer. She sang on How the West Was Won, the Sound of Music. And that song, which was a very long song, too, for that attraction. I mean, it sort of went for almost the duration of the attraction. I think for those people who grew up with that, those lyrics are so much more meaningful. And look, the Bruce Broughton version is a 60-plus piece orchestra. It's a 24-voice choir, and it is very moving on an emotional level. But I think there's, like, if I asked you to sing it, it would be very difficult. But I could belt out Tomorrow's Child, gathering gifts from our past, shaping a world that will last, like there's nobody's business, because of what it meant to be and because of how many times I rode that attraction.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive, though. I think they're both fantastic. I mean, I think that's my point, is that you could slip either of those sound. You don't have to choose. I mean, we don't really get to choose. Right? Wouldn't that be awesome if you could push a button? Which soundtrack would you like?
The soundtrack
like
and the
pick
narrator.
Your language, pick your narrator.
Right. It's like it's like Horizons. If you could choose your own voyage.
If anyone's listening who's involved in the refurb,
please do that.
Listen, I challenge you, and maybe we'll do this. Wait, we're going to go to the parks one day, and we're going to play Tomorrow's Child in our earbuds as we ride. And you can, whether you take the Jeremy Irons narration or Walter Cronkite, whoever it is that you want, and re-experience Spaceship Earth the way it used to be. And but you've got to time it right, because when your vehicle turns around and there's that reveal, I'm telling you, it hits you on an emotional level, dare I say. But
with my luck,
I'm definitely a fan of that moment over the current version. But
yeah. But in keeping with the tone of Spaceship Earth, I will tell you that east, west, north, and south, all roads from here lead not to Rome, but to Future World. And before we dive into the individual pavilions and attractions, I think it's important to take a minute to step back and look at Future World itself, because it really, it's almost like two separate and distinct parks, east and west, which are basically backwards, because east is on your left and west is on your right, which is opposite. But, as you head towards World Showcase, it's actually south. And east and west both have different themes and messages, I think, and soundtracks that reflect that. So the music is very much tied to what you see. So, for example, on the west side is the seas, the land, imagination. It's more about the things that are natural and free-flowing and, the soft sciences, as it were, and creativity and nature. So everything is very curvy and there's no straight lines at all. Even the planters, like look at the planters, everything is wavy, curved lines, whereas Future World East are the hard sciences, math and engineering. So there's Universe of Energy and Mission Space and Test Track, and everything is straight and angled and cuts into certain points. And I think the music, if you really sort of pay close attention to it, it reflects those two connected yet somewhat different approaches to the math and arts and sciences. You'll hear a lot of instrumental arrangements, probably more than anywhere else in Disney. And I think it's futuristic in nature, but not in the same way as Tomorrowland is, right? Where it sounds more sci-fi and future-ish. This is more about a modern look into the future, as it were, both on the east and west side.
So you're telling me that the ambient area music is different on the west side versus the east side?
I'm telling you everything.
Along with the
different.
planters, which now I'm like, I gotta pay attention to the planters. But is that what you're saying?
I am. That's what I'm saying.
Because so now I feel like I have to get, because all the music that I like from Future World, now I'm kind of nervous that it's all going to be on one side.
And it might be. It might be. This might be a very interesting psychosociological look into the mind of Jason Knapp based on the songs that you like or don't. And when you go in, do you go left towards energy, or do you go right toward, which isn't going to be Guardians, but we're going to talk about Universe of Energy, or do you go right towards the more, do you go math, or do you go creative?
Or do you go right towards the sissy side? Is that what you're asking me? If I go towards the
left.
sissy? Yes. I go right.
I was just about to say there's only one way to go, and it's left.
Left.
Zach Brown,
left,
which
the
way
other
do you-
right. The other.
No, I always go to the land first. That's my favorite Future World pavilion.
If you say it's because you're going to Sunshine Seasons, that's okay.
Okay, that's definitely the reason why. 100%.
Well, we're going to do it the correct way, and we're going to go left.
Okay.
All right.
Just like when I go to Magic Kingdom, it's the same way. I sort of follow the clockwise pattern. I go in
You
a
go right
certain
into
entrance.
City Hall?
I go right to City Hall. I go right to the popcorn bucket. Although I enter on the right-hand side of the train station.
Well, that is the correct side.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's start off with the Universe of Energy, which obviously may she rest in peace. For some people, Universe of Energy was the place to get out of the heat, give your kids a nap, take a nap yourself. I loved that attraction, and I love that pavilion. And in the past, and I won't sort of rehash it, we've done a deep dive into Universe of Energy. And from a musical perspective, going back to the first iteration of the attraction in the pavilion, it had not one, but two of what I think are some of the best songs and scores in the EPCOT Center soundtrack through all of its history. Energy, You Make the World Go Round,
Best.
right? By Akasha and Zoe. Buddy Baker's Universe of Energy. That background score too, they very much felt like they were, because they were 1980, 1982 pieces of music. But still to this day, I find those original two Universe of Energy songs and scores to be some of the best music in Epcot, period.
See all the forms and the faces of nature taking its course, and feel all the wonderful motion flowing through things far and near. Nature will share her secrets when we are ready to hear. Energy, these are a few of your favorites.
Bob Moline singing Energy, You Make the World Go Round. I didn't realize I could feel emotional about Energy. Like warm and fuzzy. He makes it. I know he didn't write it. I forget who wrote it, but the way he sings it, he's like the Barry Manilow of Epcot.
He's either thanking you or upset at that.
No, because it's like some of it's jingly and some of it's like a ballad or a love song. And this this particular piece, this energy you make the world go round, it is like a love song about energy. I mean, that's the way I interpret it, at least. Energy, I love you, because Bob Moline just explained it all to me.
And he explained it to you in such a simple way. It follows the Sherman Brothers, it follows the Ali Sherman, really, directive of keep it simple and keep it singable, and that's I can't remember what the third one is. And that's sincere, and that's exactly what this song is.
Well, if I've got my information correct me if I'm wrong. But I think one of the reasons why this song is, like Jason is saying, it's kind of ballady, this love song, is that one of the guys that worked on this song is Al Kasha, who had just come off of his success of the Poseidon Adventure.
Sing it. Come on, sing The Morning After with me.
Not for all the money in the room.
It's got to be I love the Poseidon Adventure, and I cry I'm not going to spoil it for you, but every time she dies, Manny, take this, give it to our grandson. I cry every time. Sorry.
Don't watch that before a cruise. That's all I have to say.
It's a double feature, Titanic and the Poseidon Adventure.
But I agree. I think that score, the Kasha and Hirschhorn score that you have in the pre-show and again at the end of what was a very, very long attraction. Remember, Universe of Energy was about 40 minutes out of your day that you were taking it. But if you remember the Radok squares that used to change in the pre-show with that music behind it, I loved getting there early to be in that room to listen to that score.
Plus, it was air conditioned.
Well, there's that too.
So it's 40 minutes in the air conditioned. Not so bad. Good attraction, fantastic music, plus AC. It's great.
Yeah. Lisa, did you ever? You have no idea what we're talking about, do you?
No, of course I do. I mean, it wasn't an attraction that ever just held a very emotional place for me for whatever reason. I think I tended to be feeding a child or something while I was on there. No, I mean, Universe of Energy for me was, of the two, the song that I loved the most. It's not one of those ones that like pulls my heartstrings for whatever reason. I do have the fond memory of we actually closed on our house when we moved here on August 11th, 2017, and the attraction closed that weekend on August 13th. And Lou, actually, you had a meetup that day. So it's one of my very first memories of being here as a local, which is, that last day, which was special to me. But yeah, I wasn't chiming in much, only because it's one of the few songs we'll probably talk about today that just doesn't, for whatever reason, it just doesn't pull an emotional.
Well,
when did they stop using the Bob Moline?
So when it switched over to Ellen's Energy Adventure in
that year,
2003, 4, somewhere around there. For a lot of people, though, that version, and I'll call it the current version, even though the attraction's gone, but the score for Ellen's Energy Adventure, for a lot of people, was one of their favorites in EPCOT. And the name Bruce Broughton is going to come up over and over and over again. He is an Emmy and Grammy Award winner, an Academy Award nomination for his work in motion pictures and TV. He has Disney connections in Rescuers Down Under and the also very popular Bambi 2. But in the parks, The Making of Me, Timekeeper, Ellen's, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, Golden Dreams, Season of the Vine, Cinemagique, the 2007 version of Spaceship Earth, and Soarin' Around the World, for a lot of people, and much like we were talking about in Spaceship Earth, the way the Broughton score rises to this incredible sort of soaring magnitude as you're talking about the epic creation of the universe. It very much is in alignment of that. And I think what it did was it almost brought, the only word that comes to mind is majesty to not just the size of the animatronics in there, and I'm not talking about Ellen, but the size of the dinosaurs, the size of that 210-degree wraparound screen, but is the score, like the attraction, was very long. It was very energetic, and it also touched on a lot of the points that the updated attraction did versus the original, which was it did have the grandeur and the spectacle, but it also was funny, and it had a heart to it, because there were characters in here now, whether it was Ellen or, rest in peace, Alex Trebek and Bill Nye. So there was a different story that was being told, and I think that the Broughton, that overture and the funny pre-show, I think that his score very much reflects the change in the attraction itself.
Yes. I was not a huge, okay, just to be honest and transparent, I was not a huge, like, Ellen's Energy version fan. I liked the original more. I liked her version of it, and she wasn't like personally responsible for it, but I liked that version of it. I just didn't like it as much. And I don't think it's Broughton's fault. I think
it had Kramer from Seinfeld, Einstein, and Chris Berman back. Like, it had all the makings of a perfect attraction.
And Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah. But you know what? The next time you're in your car, I challenge you to play the Broughton version of that song and sort of imagine yourself going through the attraction, even if distance yourself from the attraction, because it is a beautiful soaring grand score on its own.
Okay. Challenge accepted.
Whatever. You're not going to listen.
I'll do it. I will.
All right, let's come out from here, and we're going to make a hard left into another pavilion, which is undergoing, like Universe of Energy, the Wonders of Life Pavilion, which, there were individual attractions inside, but there was also some beautiful background music that you would hear, some that you would hear here and some that you would hear even in places other than a couple of them were actually in Tomorrowland too, like behind the waterfall. But there's probably no way unless you're an uber EPCOT music nerd, that you know the names of Celestial Soda Pop or Forgotten Yesterdays, unless you're Jason and love Yanni as much as he does. But there are some other names in there, David Benoit, David Lance, that you might recognize. But this music, too, had... it fit specifically into, I think, this pavilion and what this pavilion was trying to share with us and teach us, and the way it wanted to make us feel.
Like all warm and soft and wonderful inside?
That too,
because this is another George Wilkins piece, right? I mean, I think there's other people doing contributing, but George Wilkins to me is like the sound of that particular. I mean, I could be wrong.
Well, there's Wilkins in there. The Bruce Broughton actually did the score to Making of Me, which
you just love Bruce Broughton.
Well, how could you not? Which, by the way, quick aside to Making of Me, like if you were an unsuspecting parent, like taking your kid to Epcot Center, you're like, "Ooh, Martin Short, let's go see The Making of Me." It's not you. There's a lot of questions you had to answer on the way out. I learned a lot. I went to that attraction a lot. I was taking notes feverishly to just figure stuff out. But yeah, I mean, Broughton sort of had his handprint on that, and you might not remember the Making of Me film or the Making of Me score itself. Again, I encourage you to go to Spotify or whatever to take a listen. Even the Cranium Command score, which is very, very different. It's a David Newman score. It's a much faster paced, very manic type of score that fits in exactly with what that attraction was. So while there's no songs per se from the Wonders of Life Pavilion, if you are a Walt Disney World fan, you know, and Zach, I saw you nod when I think I said Behind the Waterfall. You know exactly what that song is.
I have it on vinyl.
You do?
Because I'm a nerd. I do. I found it in a $5 bin. It's on some, new age sounding world instrumental album. It's great. But you said Celestial Soda Pop, which I always think of the color pink. But really anything by Ray Lynch really sets that tone. It's that new age music, and the album Deep Breakfast. You can just put that on, and that is future world right there.
Don't give it to Lynch. It's all Yanni. It's Yanni. Don't.
I'm shocked that there is a Yanni versus Lynch debate going on.
I mean, they're both wonderful, but Yanni's
I break it for Lynch.
Yanni's the real son. So I think I was. Oh, stop it! You're just being cruel. So I was confused. So the warm fuzzy feeling, I was thinking Wilkins, I think, is more associated with Horizons. If I'm not mistaken, it's Yanni that I associate with this particular pavilion. That's why I felt so good inside when you said it. Yanni.
I will leave you guys to.
All I hear is Laurel.
Laurel or Yanni? Let's move on, and we're gonna stay in the present before we go back, because I do want to spend a little bit of time on what the predecessor to Mission Space is. And while you might not be able to necessarily identify the Mission Space music, which again has that very almost more Tomorrowland-like futuristic feel to it, the interesting thing about Mission Space is who the composer is of the Mission Space score, and it's Trevor Rabin from, yes, that's Break It, Owner of a Lonely Heart. Owner of a Broken Heart. Ooh, really? Much better than it. I'm not lying to you. He also did Remember the Titans. He wrote music for like 40 different films. His post-Yes career was very extensive.
Wow.
I'm not
I
lying.
learned something here. I'm going to write this down so I can...
Again, go back, listen to the score for Mission Space. More importantly, I think the music from the post-show of Mission Space.
Yes, I was going to say that when you get... Yes, not just because you're off and you feel better. You're like, oh my God, thank God that's over. But also because... Yeah, and people just rush out. But if you stand in the hall, you got to stand in the hallway.
Sing it. Sing it for us.
Not going to do it. No, it's not going to
It's called Destiny.
It's so beautiful.
It's like a 90s R&B song that plays after the summer blockbuster movie that you go home and you're just like, yes, this is going to be why I buy the CD, and just this is going to be my slow jam home.
It was written by Cliff Masterson and performed beautifully, by the way, by Louise Warren.
Yeah, it's an impressive piece of music, and I think the first time I heard it was actually not. I mean, the first time I recognized, or I remember hearing it, wasn't in the attraction, or after the attraction. It was on an album, but I remember thinking, really, I don't think that actually is true. Like, I don't think that actually plays after the attraction's finished. But
you would almost imagine that playing at the end of the night on your way out of the park. Like, it's the sort of perfect way to, because it's the same thing. If you listen and read the lyrics from the song, it very much embodies what EPCOT is. Through time and space, together we race to brave new worlds across the universe. I have to catch myself, because every time I start saying the lyrics, I want to start breaking into song in the lyrics, and I'm not going to do it. I am not going to.
I was going to say, if ever there's going to be a show where you're going to sing by mistake.
Man, I'm getting close. You wait till I get to the Sherman Brothers stuff. I'm going to have to edit this incredibly. But again, it's It's a long song. I think it's a beautiful song. Zach, I think that was sort of a great way to describe it. But as much as I like the music of Mission Space, what we got to do right here is go back, way back into time.
What we're going to do right here is go back, way back into time.
And I'm talking about Horizons. Like, Horizons, all shining and new. There is so much good music in here. Dare I say that the New Horizons song may be, like EPCOT, the most inspiring of all the music in EPCOT Center, because I think the New Horizons song and the beautiful integration of Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow from Carousel of Progress, because Horizons was meant to be a sequel, makes it... Gosh, I could go on about Horizons because I love this so much, but I want to give you guys a chance of the song and the score from the original Horizons.
I was more of a fan of. I mean, what stood out for me was the ambient music and the breakout in the plaza, and then the entrance to the space.
The transition tunnel is what takes me back to my childhood.
I mean, that just like. I was gonna say it's almost like returning to the womb, kind of like it felt like it's just this nice, pleasant, comforting feeling that you got, and I think it was all about the music
and the smells. Horizons is literally my oldest memory. Like the first memory I can truly recollect as a child is smelling the oranges and hearing the music on Horizons, and so both transport me back to being 4 years old on that attraction.
It was nearly the perfect attraction.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Very similar to like Haunted Mansion, where it's the same song that basically goes through the entire attraction, but with different iterations. It's fantastic. You know, you've got that George Wilkins stuff, and he was underneath, Buddy Baker, who that was his shtick through all those early years of Imagineering, and then carrying that on to this new wave of what we were seeing in the parks. And it stuck with you. You couldn't help but take that song with you after being on the same attraction for like 15 minutes or however long. And it stuck with you. It was really, really great.
Plus, it's really cool that it's transitional in terms of not just what Disney was and what Disney is, but even from a score standpoint, that you had the Sherman Brothers working with these other composers and songwriters. So you had that old feel and new feel, and then you threw in some synthesizers and it was just felt like Disney, but felt new.
You can't talk about Horizons and the Sherman Brothers because the Sherman Brothers actually wrote 2 songs for the attractions that they didn't use. They wrote a song called Reach for New Horizons and Tomorrow's Windows.
2 bars. 1, 2, 2.
If we can dream it, if we can dream it.
There's a smile on the face of tomorrow, like the heartwarming sight of a friend. Where we work, where we play, dreams come true every day as we reach for new horizons. We have learned to get more out of living. It's a rich, happy lifetime we spend. For the whole human race, there is time, there is space, as we reach for new horizons.
There's a smile on the face of tomorrow, like the heartwarming side of a friend. Where we work, where we play, dreams come true every day as we reach for new horizons. rise of tomorrow, like the heartwarming sight of a friend. Where we work, where we play, dreams come true every day as we reach for new horizons. We have learned to get more out of
And GE was like, not exactly what we're looking for. And it was George Wilkins who came up with this sort of ballad and this sort of ethereal quality to it that is exactly what they were looking for. And that, in the most lovely kind of way, that haunting loop of the melody line of "If we can dream it, we can do it," it was sung by those children over and over again, with the backed up by that very 80s spacey synthesizer behind it. Like, it's very easy for us who've heard it to remember that theme in terms of it being the score, and then sort of easily flowing into the New Horizons song itself.
Picturing a world we've yet to see.
The wonder of finding new ways that lead to the promise of brighter days.
It's interesting because Horizons was meant to be a sequel to Carousel of Progress, and so many people are surprised by that, and you wonder like how much more literal that would have felt if the Sherman music had been used instead, because it felt so different.
Well, some of the Sherman Brothers, I mean, some of the music still was in there, right? It wasn't
Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow was,
it's in there, right?
Yeah,
there's Great Big
it's in
Beautiful
there,
but it's right.
but it was just such a different feel.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just a dream away.
And
I've heard a demo.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've heard the demo of the Sherman song, the Reaching New Horizons. It's incredibly slow. I mean, it's a beautiful Sherman Brothers song, but if you can imagine that, if you've heard it, hearing that in the attraction, it's just slow. I mean, it's like taking the Universe of Energy song and dropping the tempo down a lot. And it doesn't have that plucky and fun bounce feel that we had with the attraction music that we ended up with. So yes, it would have been great, but I love that little nod, especially of Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. It's almost like the Marvel Easter egg in the middle of the attraction.
And I think there's something too, if you really listen to the lyrics of New Horizons, I think it very much embodies the spirit of Walt, right? We don't know exactly what Walt wanted, but when you hear things like, have you ever dreamed the dreams of the children? Just imagine their minds can see. That sort of conjures up a feeling of what Walt would have wanted this prototype community of tomorrow to be. And that's why I think that both the song and the Wilkins score, which was all Wilkins, it's interesting because this entire pavilion, unlike any of the other ones we've talked about, and now that I think about any other ones going forward, this pavilion is all Wilkins all the time. So it very much had his handprint all over it.
And a mighty fine handprint it is.
And if you think back to the attraction itself, or go find a ride through on YouTube, they did, much like you've heard in Carousel of Progress even, you hear the song and the score change styles a number of different times. It goes from that, European cafe to the swing to new age to a more futuristic digital synthesized kind. So you're able to sort of repurpose that single score multiple times over, a Sherman Brothers type trick, actually, which is, again, all because of and thanks to a single composer. Horizons ranks very, very high, by the way. Get in the car with me. Not that you want to get in the car with me, but if Horizon comes on, the windows are coming down. I'm just saying.
No one ever has to complain when Lou rolls up to a gas station and his Horizon's blaring. It says, turn that down.
And then when somebody catches me singing, I usually pick up my phone and pretend that I'm talking to somebody so they don't actually see my whatever.
Because we all sing to people on the phone.
Always.
That's right.
All right, let's
Who is
like,
this
cover my
sad
whole
little
face.
man?
Let's move on again. Let's do the same thing. Let's sort of stay in the present, and then we'll move back into the past, and we'll go over to Test Track, where General Motors really wanted to look at automobile transportation of today as opposed to the history of transportation that was World of Motion, and we'll look at the differences really in terms of what the songs and the score were. And again, this too has probably one of the most futuristic feeling type scores. The pavilion itself doesn't just have a Tron feel to it, but I think even the music itself does as well.
So this music just means so much to me because my kids love Test Track so much. And so like their excitement when I'm in that queue space, like when I hear that music, in fact, when I was kind of going over stuff for the show today, I was playing it and I kind of got those butterflies, because it's one of the many songs that like I can tell you how much it moves me emotionally, but I couldn't hum it for the life of me. I can hear it in my head still, but yeah, like it's the excitement of the attraction for me. Like I can like I associate that music with my little boy's excitement. That's what I've got for Test Track.
Well, and do you remember the original song from Test Track?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was very sort of hard and jarring.
Yeah.
It was very industrial.
Yeah. And there was a lot of like sound effects in there. There was like screeching tires and car crashes or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I very much prefer the current version for lots of reasons. But I can hear it in my head, probably because I listened to it today. But
so wait, very quickly, did you listen to EPCOT music in preparation for tonight?
Absolutely.
How can you not?
Well, not all of it.
Like when I tell you, like when you messaged about doing this show, I felt this bizarre dichotomy of like the most I've ever felt prepared for a show and the least I've ever felt prepared for a show, because I was like, this is in my bones, but I can't articulate it for the life of me. And so I spent some time. I allocated a couple of hours today just to like getting myself in the headspace and like trying to like articulate these huge feelings that this music evokes in me.
Well, sometimes it's hard sometimes.
Yes, I listened to a lot of the music today.
Yeah, to sort of verbally convey feelings that we know you who is listening probably understands and feels. Maybe not about every single attraction, but I'm sure there's going to be one that we hit along the way that is going to strike a literal and figurative chord, emotionally with
World
you.
Showcase.
Yeah.
I mean,
wherever it might be, whatever attraction it might be, imagination, I'm looking at you. I'm coming at you hard, so get ready. Let's go back in time to what I think was and remains an underappreciated for many attraction. World of Motion, you went away too soon. I think this attraction, and I believe I did a DSI, like a Wayback Machine about it years ago. If not, I'll have to do it again. But this pavilion, this building, and I think even the music were unique among EPCOT. And I think that the song remains not just one that's sort of locked in that period of time, but I think was one of the most fun and upbeat and, Zach, to your point, that simple and singable, it's fun to be free song.
I don't know.
No, none of you have actually been on World. None of you actually been on World of Motion.
I was on World of Motion probably one time in my life.
So it's your fault that it went away. See, Jason Knapp killed World of Motion.
My favorite thing was the tunnel. The tunnel that you went through, and that you felt like I would love that. I can remember it. Probably was more than once I went on.
The tunnel that did the whoosh thing.
Yeah, right. exactly.
Okay, so
but the music doesn't. For me, I'm sorry. Like the music doesn't stand out from that first version.
So I want you to go back. I want you to go back, and I want you to listen to this again, and I want you to listen to it with a little bit of different thought maybe in your head, okay? Because It's Fun to Be Free was another Exitensio gem. Exitensio was an amazing storyteller who was tasked by Walt Disney to write lyrics. He's like, I'm not a lyricist. He's like, yeah, but you're a storyteller. That's why Yo-Ho and Grim Grinning Ghosts are so well done. Him coupled along with Buddy Baker, another legendary composer. This song, which was on all of those different CDs and albums, the album of Disneyland and Walt Disney World and the Happiest Celebration on Earth album. This, Zach, to your point, this music was very similar to It's a Small World because there were so many different variations, maybe a dozen different variations and iterations of this same song in a single attraction that changed, past tense, based on where it was playing. So there was this underscore loop, but then depending on where you were in the attraction, the harmonies and arrangements would be very different, whether you in ancient Rome
like a Charleston
or
version,
Arabian,
right?
What?
Like a Charleston version at one point.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of
so
jazzy.
It's almost like Spaceship Earth, sort of like moving through time, right? You got in your little omni-mover vehicle, which was called a chair car, which I thought was the stupidest name in the world, but that doesn't matter. You started in a cave scene, then you went to like traveling over water in a raft, then you were in Babylon. Remember the invention of the wheel? I think this had some of the most iconic visual scenes. If you ever,
as you're describing it, I'm remembering it. It's like it was like a.
Then do you remember you went to the?
I didn't like
Christopher Columbus. Oh God.
It's fun to be free, to be on the move. It's fun to be free, to be on the move, to go anywhere with never a care to. It's fun to be free, to be on the move, to go anywhere.
It's fun to be free, to be on the move, to go anywhere with never a care.
God, I loved it. Christopher Columbus, then the Age
I
of
love
Flight.
the attraction, but the music as I'm hearing it, as I think I'm hearing it, maybe I'm hearing it incorrectly. But
God, I want to sing it so bad, but
I don't think
it's
it's
fun to be
good.
free, to be on the move, to go anywhere with ever a care. It's oh, it's so close to singing.
Do it.
Doing it, folks. He's doing it.
I can't.
He's doing jazz hands. for
He is
those of
totally
you
doing
who
jazz
can't
hands.
see it.
I don't. Okay, I mean, people are going to yell at when I say this, but I don't like that. I don't like that song. It may be the only attraction music in Epcot that I dislike.
Wow. Remember, speaking of memories, remember when we used to be friends? Remember when Jason used to come on the show?
Maybe that was the theme song to our friendship. It's fun to
Scale
be
of the
free.
extinct attractions, Jason.
And I see, Zach, again, to your point, Zach, you get me. Like the different musical styles, that jazz and that Keystone Cop and that little kazoo. Like, say, give me a kazoo so I can.
Wait, from the Flintstones?
No, not that. Not the great kazoo. This is a kazoo. This was actually, and you could also hear this in the Epcot.
Can we go to the right side of the park now?
That is my favorite part of the Epcot entrance music. It's totally different, but to Jason's point, it is not my favorite of the songs. I did like it in the entrance, but it's more orchestral in that spot. So I'm going to play devil's advocate in that spot.
I'm looking around like, should I get a piece of paper? And remember, you used to like try and make a kazoo sound with a piece of paper, whatever.
Yes. 2 plates of crabs.
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
We only have high class stuff on this show, folks.
I am this close to at least like humming. It's fun to be free. Whatever. I will do you and everybody else a favor, and we will make our way to the opposite side of
so close. So close.
I was really close. And it's funny because I didn't think that was a song I was going to sing. I thought it was going to be this one. That concludes part 1 of our magical musical tour of EPCOT Center, specifically Future World. As you can tell, there's a lot to cover, and I really want to try and be as comprehensive as possible, not just talking about current and former attractions and shows and background music, but really giving you a little bit of insight into the people who helped create it, as well as sharing some personal stories and anecdotes as well. Of course, now I'd love to hear from you in terms of what is your favorite piece of Future World East music, your thoughts about Spaceship Earth, and the entrance loop. You can let me know by calling the voicemail and be heard on the air at 407-900-9391, or go to the Clubhouse. It's our group on Facebook at wdwradio.com/clubhouse. I'll post this question there, and you can share your thoughts, your comments, and your personal memories. And of course, stay tuned next week as we head on over to Future World West with the Imagination Pavilion, the Land Pavilion, the Seas, and a little bit of Interventions and Communicore, and of course, the Fountain of Nations. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you had as much fun listening as we did recording. Now on to this week's trivia contest. It's time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I invite you to test your knowledge of Walt Disney World's history, or see how well you pay attention to the details, sometimes in what you see, hear, remember, or taste. If you think you know the answer, you can enter via our online form for a chance to win a Disney Prize package. But before we get to this week's question, let's go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So last week we went over to Disney Springs and to a certain degree back to Pleasure Island, because I asked you to tell me what was originally in the location that is the current home of Raglan Road in Disney Springs. First, thanks to the hundreds of you who entered, got this one correct, and knew that originally the building that houses Raglan Road now was home to the Pleasure Island Jazz Company. It was also home to the Merriweather Market quick service restaurant when it opened in 1989 to about 1992. But I was looking for the Jazz Company and or Merriweather Market. If you had one, if you had both, I still considered it correct. By the way, remember the arcade next door called Propeller Heads? Anyway, I took all the correct entries, randomly selected one, and again, last week you were playing for all of my digital products, which is my 102 Ways to Save Money for an At Walt Disney World book, all 7 of my virtual audio walking tours of Magic Kingdom, where I take you virtually with me with the binaural sounds of the park behind us through the stories, the history, the secrets, and some of the details. You can find all those, by the way, at WDWRadio.com. But last week's winner, randomly selected, is Angela Montesano from Wisconsin. Angela, thank you. Congratulations. I have your shipping address, and we'll get your prize package out to you, well, actually today. But if you played last week and didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So this week, it's not a where in the world, it's not a history question, but I want you to put on your thinking caps a little bit, because I want you to name all of the locations in Walt Disney World where guests can actually ride on or in a train. Now, when I say train, I don't mean anything where there is a series of connected cars like any roller coaster, but something that is an actual locomotive or is at least designed to resemble a train or even have the word train in the title. I'm sure this will be subject to interpretation, but it will be fun nonetheless. So tell me all the locations in Walt Disney World where you can actually ride on or in a train. You have until Sunday, November 15th at 11:59 p.m. to go to WDWRadio.com, click on this week's podcast, use the form there. Again, you're going to play for all the digital products, the books, the audio tours, and a brand new WDW Radio Cobalt Blue mug. So good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in this and every week and for joining us on our exploratory musical tour through EPCOT Center. Again, I'd love to hear from you about your thoughts about your favorite music from EPCOT, and the best way to do that is to be part of the community and conversation, joining our group over on Facebook. So please go to WDWRadio.com/community. It'll show you all the different ways you can be part of the WDW Radio community, the running team, and more. Speaking of community, I want to thank some of the new and longtime members of the WDW Radio Nation family. I sincerely appreciate your love, support, friendship, and help, and I love being able to give back to you each and every month with exclusive rewards. I want to thank some new and longtime members like Kevin Shea, Phil Manelli, Simon Rubens, Bridget Schultz, and Amanda Bonner. If you want to not only help the show, but also get exclusive rewards every month, including monthly scavenger hunts, trivia games, we have access to our private Facebook group, custom Magic Band covers, logo gear, t-shirts, backpacks, care packages every month from Walt Disney World, exclusive live video group calls, early access to events, discounts, and more. You can visit WDWRadio.com/support. Again, it's completely optional, a great way for you to help show your support for the show. And please don't forget that a portion of your contributions, which start at as little as $1 a month, go to our Dream Team project to benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation of America. And speaking of connecting and staying connected, while we still can't do Meets of the Month yet, I think we're getting closer. I'd love to connect with you online. I am at Lou Mongello on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. Be sure and like the WDW Radio page at facebook.com/WDW Radio. If you have a question you'd like me to answer on the show, email me, lou@WDWRadio.com, or call the voicemail we heard on the air at 407-900-9391. And yes, that spells out 407-900-WDW1. If I can help you turn what you love into what you do with one-on-one coaching, being part of our weekly mastermind group, or coming to speak virtually or otherwise to your business or online event, you can visit LouMongello.com. And I hope that this and really all the episodes get you excited about coming or coming back to Walt Disney World soon. When you are ready to book your next vacation, or if you just have any questions about an upcoming trip to a Disney destination or anywhere on the planet, please go and visit our friends and sponsors over at Mousefan Travel. It's who I love, it's who I recommend, because it's who I have personally used for coming up on 13 years now. Reach out to them at mousefantravel.com for a free, no obligation quote. And as always, my friend, and you are my friend, whether we have met yet or not, all I ask is that if you like the show, please help spread the word. Let others know about it by tweeting out that you're listening, sharing a link to this or your favorite episode on Facebook, on your profile, or on a group or a page. And if you can, take just a couple of seconds to rate and review the show over on Apple Podcasts. Even if you listen primarily on Spotify or Overcast, a review on Apple Podcasts is super helpful. I'd like to thank some recent reviewers like Dr. NKS White, who says, here's my top 10 reasons to listen to the WDW Radio podcast. 10, it's almost as good as being there, almost. 9, nostalgia, it brings back my childhood memories. 8, Lou likes to eat almost as much as we do. 7, that wacky family, the kids don't fall far from the tree. 6, his Disney experience pluses our Disney experiences. It adds a new twist or a new view. 5, Walt would totally have listened. 4, Lou took his passion for Disney and turned it into his job. It's like the old saying, find what you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. Amen, brother. 3, it makes you want to be at Disney every day. 2, Lou seems like the guy you want to take on vacation with. Yay. 1, Lou and little Timmy Foster. The bromance, the Mickey and Donald, the Luke and Han, the Rocket and Groot, and 1B, because there's never just a top 10 in the Lou Mongello top 10. Mic drop, exit stage left, kiss goodnight. 5, DK Jack says it's positively wonderful with a plethora of spectacular guests. There's no shortage of entertainment. Lou's not only fun and a fantastic host, but his positive energy is infectious and inspiring. And Boo, with lots of O's, 113-875-309 says, really great. I enjoy the very amount of topics and guests, including regulars like Tim Foster. Top 10s are some of my favorites. Dr. White, DK Jack, and Boo, thank you, and everybody who left a review in Apple Podcasts. Again, just search for WDW Radio there, or if you go to WDWRadio.com/iTunes, it'll show you exactly how and where to do it. Finally, most importantly, thank you. I love and appreciate you. But I did also promise you, see, you thought I was going to forget, I did tell you at the beginning why you need to make sure to tune in this Wednesday night to WDW Radio Live. It's our live weekly broadcast and conversation on Facebook. So it's not just because we'll be able to talk together live about this week's show and the music of EPCOT. It's not just because I have a brand new Top 5 Live to share with you exclusively on that show. It's not just because we'll talk about last week's Disney Plus pick of the week, which is The Boys, the Sherman Brothers story, but I will have a new Disney Plus pick of the week as well. But also, exclusively for those who watch live, I'm going to reveal something new that I've been working on for a while, and I want to share it with you there first. Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern at WDWRadioLive.com. Thank you. I love and appreciate you. I hope that this show has made your day better. It's put a smile on your face, maybe a little nostalgia in your heart, and maybe will inspire you to go and spread that positivity however you can in any small way to somebody else. Choose the good. Find the good in everything that you do and be the good and spread it to others. You'll be surprised not just how good you feel, but how good you'll make other people feel as well. That is the kind of contagious that we need right now. I hope that this is your best week ever. I love and appreciate you. Thank you so much. See ya.
Hey, Lou, it's Steve Medina. This is the first time I've actually ever called you. I was listening to your show on Quiet Places. I got a couple places. Both of them are in Liberty Square. The first one are the 2 rocking chairs that you'll find next to Hall of Presidents. I like sitting there in the evenings, especially when the parks starting to close and people are heading out. I like to sit there and basically let the crowds go. The other is on the, I think it's the south side of the old Christmas shop. There's like a gazebo there. I think it used to be a story time area or something. It's a nice place, nice shaded area where you could take some time and just relax and listen to the music. Well, anyway, those are my 2 spots. Thanks for everything you do, and talk to you soon.
Hello, Lou Mongello. This is Victoria Gist from Danbury, Connecticut. I think it was a couple of weeks back when you and Becky were answering some listener emails. You had mentioned great rides and attractions to do in the dark at Walt Disney World. And that took me right back to my husband and my honeymoon a few years back. We were lucky enough to get to spend a night in the Magic Kingdom on our way back from an awesome Disney cruise. And because the fireworks were just beginning, we got to zoom on to Seven Dwarfs Mine Car. And wow, going on that ride, hitting the peaks and coming down while the fireworks are going off above you was just such a surreal experience. I would definitely recommend to anyone. That is when the fireworks return, which I hope happens soon. We are just 2 months out from our trip back to Disney World, and while I know it's going to be a lot different, I'm so excited and still hoping that pretty soon I'll actually get to see you in the parks. Thank you so much for reminding us all to choose the good. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you got next week. Bye.
Hey Lou, it's Christine Morrison from Flowertown, Pennsylvania. And I'm watching my homework, The Boys, and I just had to stop. And maybe it's because I had a glass of wine. I'm not sure. But I'm feeling very sentimental because I didn't realize that they had written all of those songs for Annette Funicello. And myself growing up, my father was very, very into music and really should have been a DJ. And I remember many, many a times listening to all those Annette Funicello songs. And my father's also a huge Disney buff. And that's really where I got my love from. And we used to watch all the Spin-in' Marty episodes and that whole series with Annette Funicello when she was the new girl in town. And I can't remember. I think it was part of the Mickey Mouse Club, but the whole Annette Funicello shorts was one of my favorite things. I just loved all the costuming, and the storyline was just fabulous. So I am at the point where they just started working for Walt, and I just wanted to call and tell you that it's been a pleasant surprise watching this, and it really has brought back a lot of memories from my childhood with my dad. And I just love Annette Funicello. I think she is just awesome, and I remember my dad playing all of her music. So I will let you know when I'm done, but I'm only about halfway through, I think. And so far, it's awesome. Makes someone smile. I'll see you guys. Bye.